do you think that the way that the American drone policy is now executed, do you think that creates a dangerous precedent for other regimes that might gain drone capabilities?
Yes, I think, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The American policy, again, relying on the DOJ white paper, creates, for me, a deeply troubling paradigm that, were it to be implemented by other nation states, would, I think, be a legitimate source of concern as to how counterterrorism policy is applied and the relationship between counterterrorism and the rule of law. And I think that the tension, if you're going to do one of these balancing configurations, that the American approach is to favor the act rather than the law.
Yeah. And so do you think that in the realm of drones and drone strikes, that currently might makes right, if you will? In that sense.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think in terms of how the U.S. applies its policy, I hadn't thought about it in terms of might makes right, but that's not a bad way to put it.
Because arguably, if, say, Iran would now start using drones in the same way that the Americans...
Oh, the Americans would be very angry.
Yeah.
So there's your answer.
Spending on drone technology is projected to double in the next decade. So the question is, will drones eventually replace humans?
Yeah, there are those who suggest that in the context of state, non-state, not state-state, but state, non-state, the drones are the tool of the future. There's clearly in the United States a great effort and a great determination to minimize the so-called boots on the ground and to minimize the harm potentially to soldiers. And the argument or the theory is that drones are the most effective way to minimize potentially harm to soldiers, because soldiers aren't on the ground. And that's why I do think that in context of state, non-state, drones really are the future. I think that's a fair bet.
Other countries have also started to develop drone capability, including China and Russia. And I heard a rumor, I'm not sure if this is true, that Iran also would have...
I don't know enough about Iranian capability if they have drones, but again, I don't know anything about, technology. I mean, I don't even know how you make this microphone work, but I'm told that, a 14-year-old can make a drone. Let's go online, punch in www drone making or whatever it is. So the technology is out there, right? Is there concern that certain regimes, whether it's the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the North Koreans, on and on and on, would have drone capability? I mean, it's always a question, but let's assume that they do, right? The assumption is that they do. The question is, are they going to engage in self-imposed restrictions in terms of how to use it? That's the question. And that's why you need an international law structure to, as much as possible, to create a paradigm or ensure a paradigm whereby the use is limited to or conducted in accordance with the law.
And do you think if the U.S. is assertive in promoting such an international legal framework, that it's more likely that other countries will also abide by it?
It's not enough for the U.S. to advocate an international law regime or paradigm. It's not enough to talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. The question is whether or not the U.S. would commit itself to conducting itself in accordance with an international law regime. Again, relying on the DOJ white paper, I think that's an open question, or a fair question.